10 years. Or over 10 years, depending on when you're watching this. That feels so long ago when this show first started. I have an appreciation for how it has carried on throughout many years of my life and in the fandom. If you would have told me that I'd be making this kind of video today, I would have called you crazy. I came up with this idea a few years ago to make a top 10 list for my favorite episodes of Friendship is Magic. To do this, it involved narrowing down all 222 episodes little by little, until I eventually could not narrow them down anymore. From then, I used a rating system to narrow them down more to the ones that would make the list. Then I caved in and made this a top 15. Even then, I wanted to have honorable mentions as well. So we're in for a ride. What am I talking about? We've been on the ride, and the ride never ends. Spoiler warning for those who haven't seen the series all the way through yet. Without further ado, let's count down my top 15 favorite episodes of Friendship is Magic. Before we get to the list proper, let's start off with some quick honorable mentions.
Now's our chance to pass these slowpokes.
I do appreciate this episode for the dynamic we see between Light and Dust's reckless behavior and Rainbow, as well as learning about how the Wonderbolt Academy is run with Spitfire.
I didn't know that last performance was my last performance.
With the return of Flutter Guy, it's somewhat adorable to see Fluttershy so excited to sing, even if it's behind the stage. I also like the concept of the Ponytones being in an a cappella group before. A change of pace from usual with a different world, different villain, and different abilities for the main six.
Detective Rarity is on the case, and we're going to get to the bottom of this faster than my costume change!
Rarity's moment to shine in detective work, which I like how all the information she gathers all connects together in the end, despite Dash's doubts. Also, Spitfire's mom.
I hate to admit it to myself, and would really hate to admit it to my friends, but
You could make a comparison from the plot of this episode to joining the fandom when you first start out. I do at least.
Trixie is the highest level unicorn!
An interesting way to take a returning side character and turning her into the antagonist for an episode. I mostly like the cleverness of how Twilight fools Trixie in the last battle to remove the amulet.
Applejack, when you're family, you make the time.
I honestly could not put into words why I like this episode. It just has that likable vibe.
The cakes are burning. You left the ovens on.
We need water!
Besides getting more screen time of Glimmer, we get hilarious moments from the main six under her spell. Also, I want that fountain. Actually, I want the whole entire roof here.
Rainbow Dash's linen closet. Her carpet.
We learn a lot about Rainbow Dash's childhood and her parents, as well as getting more bonding moments between her and Scootaloo.
Sugar, sugar bell, oh, when will you tell me that you feel the same?
Shut up.
Hey, 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 yeah.
I found Pinky's page.
An unexpected callback to the Season 4 journal, with Meta, Hume, and a great wrap-up song to the episode, although it did end rather quick without a full resolution, which irks me a bit.
Everybody, this is Rarity.
We learn a little more about Canterlot's higher class of citizens, with Rarity going around and getting invited to all these different events, which I like.
Amazing! Incredible!
It was cool the first time we found out Daring Do was real, plus that scene with RD and Daring Do at the end is pretty adorable.
Oh, you ponies are just the most fun I've had in eons.
We get introduced to Discord, who I like as a villain, as well as see the discorded main six. I like how it gives us a small sense of hopelessness with Twilight becoming gray, but then we get that sense of hope again with the help of Celestia sending Twilight back her old letters.
But first, a pop quiz on the names I taught you.
Kind of a relatable situation about wanting to be in multiple places at once but can't, but it has the absurdity you would expect from this many Pinkie Pies.
Because I know where the elements of harmony are. You need me.
A similar feeling to see the discorded main six with having them be the opposite of their regular selves. I also like how they eventually try to overtake their creator, Chrysalis, only to, you know.
You ruined everything!
Okay, baby fish. Baby fish mouth.
Kieran.
Light!
It does a good job at providing that intended cringe factor to us, but Spike gets his heroic moment at the end.
And that's why I'm adopting Applejack as my big sister. What? What?
Many memorable lines and events that strengthen Rarity and Sweetie Belle's sibling relationship, which I like.
Citizens of Ponyville, we have graced your tiny village with our...
It was interesting at the time to finally see Luna again as she gets acquainted with the townsfolk during Nightmare Night, which we learn what it is. I appreciate the elaborate scare Fluttershy set up to scare her friends. Very fun, and I like the different colors in the setting for this episode. We get to look into how Luna was banished by Celestia, as well as when Discord was turned into stone. It's interesting to see how even when he is somewhat reformed, his past plans still arise many moons later. It also seems like a finishing arc, with having the Everfree Forest seem scary. Also, the Tree of Harmony is discovered.
You think you can boss Discord around? You think I'm just going to turn all this back because you say so? Because if I...
Despite all of the main six, including Discord, having doubts about Fluttershy reforming him, he ends up admitting that he was played in the end with friendship. Clever, Fluttershy. Clever.
Well played, Fluttershy. Well played.
Twilight, you've got to listen to me.
A clever time travel story that, through a series of events with Twilight trying to prevent the future, ends up exactly where it starts. That's how time travel should work.
It is on.
I think it's the classic sleepover setting that makes me like this episode. But it takes a spin for focusing more on the conflict between the characters rather than the sleepover itself. It just serves as a setting with events for the characters and the story to work with.
Maybe we should take it down a notch?
Idea!
Another classic episode with a nice song, memorable lines, and dramatic rarity.
Oh, hello, Skybeak.
Ocean flow. You're looking well.
I mostly appreciate this for the world building we learn in the land of the hippogriffs and the sea ponies.
Now I know, right?
I'm pretty sure I watched this just for the different roles or personalities of Fluttershy.
Like, totally terminated as well.
I feel weak all of a sudden.
This episode works well as an important progression in the series, with Twilight becoming ready to rule Equestria, as well as the villains getting closer, learning how to use the bell and wreak havoc.
I like funny words. One of my favorite funny words is kumquat.
Another episode with classic memorable events, and Derby.
9x13-inch pan.
Twilight! Non-stick pans!
The importance of self-care is a very important lesson to take away from watching this. Also, the stakes are kind of high with Sakura possibly turning into a literal tree.
Well, I suggest you put down your silly cards of flash, for I know that they cannot help our good friend Rainbow Dash.
Very lenient putting this as an honorable mention. It's mostly the jokes in it that make me like watching it.
Lucky star!
You taught me to look for those when I was a filly.
Another episode that contributes to the Season 9 arc with Twilight. And we get more Luna and Celestia as well.
But I do know a lot about running. And you know this from books. I've read several on the subject.
A really classic episode with the race between Rainbow Dash and Applejack, with tons of comfy and memorable moments.
Good gravy, girl. What's wrong with you?
I don't want to talk about it.
We get to see the hilarious effects from the poison joke, as well as not judging a book by its cover, literally. Also, we get introduced to Sakura.
But doing things like you used to won't turn him back into a puppy. So, what do I do? Treat him like the dog he is. And
It's an interesting lesson about facing the fact that the ones you care for grow up.
love it to death. Then I guess we'll just have to bust our way out.
I mostly appreciate the side problem in this, with Cozy Glow being the main villain, but you also have Chancellor Naysay kind of taking over for part of it, so it's like a multiple story plot kind of deal.
Heads stallion, Nacy.
Normally, I wouldn't dream of digging, but right now,
Show me the money!
It's a great final season premiere, where Somber comes back stronger than before, and I do appreciate that we get rid of the elements of harmony, as well as the tree of harmony. It presents a new challenge for the main six.
Oh, silly! I'm dropping you two off as soon as we're close to the fans. Then I'm going into space!
The absurdity that happened in the 200th episode was full of comedic moments from stuff you wouldn't expect to see in the show. Great to show appreciation to the VAs by allowing them to contribute to the story.
All of them? He wants all of the cakes!
Speaking of absurdity, come on. An episode with Tree Hugger, Smooth, a sock puppet, plus the return of the Grand Galloping Gala, and a lesson of Discord about dealing with jealousy between friends. To the extent where he's literally about to send Tree Hugger to a different dimension.
dude.
Roses are red, violets are blue. You sell flowers, and so do you!
A literal body swap episode, but with an ending that I can genuinely believe that each come out of it understanding each other's sides and coming to a compromise at the end. Wait, an episode where I actually like Angel Bunny?
That's a horrible story!
A pretty obvious whodunit, but we get to learn about each of the species' cultures during the holiday. Yona's was interesting, Silverstream's looked fun, Sandbar's was comedic, Ocellus was just hilarious with taking everything literally, and Smolder's was just unexpected to where her story was going. Then we see Gallus' somewhat depressing life during the holidays in his homeland, even with the students being kept away at the school during the holidays. Seriously, is that okay? An interesting episode with great moments from the Student 6.
Join us? Too tired.
One of the rare instances we get an episode about Luna and Celestia learning about their daily and nightly lives, as well as seeing Daybreaker for the first time. Also, the fact that the school didn't raise funds just because Luna didn't smile for the picture, great moment. Also,
That smile's too wide, it's obviously not real.
why couldn't you rhyme there? Why? Foos.
I don't believe it!
I don't think I've ever seen a more down-to-earth and comfy Apple episode all the way through than this one, especially with the bond between Applejack and Applebloom. This is probably because the episode felt like there were pretty low stakes in the situation. The story takes a turn halfway through once AJ joins Applebloom in the hunt for the Great Seedling. Again, this episode felt like it was going at a pretty low stakes pace, so it was a pretty comfy watch.
Welcome home, Twilight.
An interesting incorporation of the butterfly effect, with a callback to Season 1 information, the Cutie Mark Chronicles. The moments where it feels like 4D chess, such as Starlight using friendship and agreement against Twilight for the sake of fixing the timeline, I really like those moments. While we get to see different turnouts to what could have happened if the villains took over, it takes the viewers on a ride through multiple situations and settings with contrasting worlds or timelines all coming back to the center of it all, the Rainbow Dash race. And we also get to see Starlight's past.
Where are we?
Whew. Alright, on to the list proper. Let's be honest, the show would not nearly be the same without the music. The songs can help carry the story forward or provide emotion. So what happens if we fill an entire episode with them?
Okay, Crusaders, back to the business of earning our cutie marks. Any suggestions? No, we've tried everything. We've run out of ideas.
This is mostly the only entry on the list where the music is the main part why I enjoy this episode. I feel like the story carries along at a better pace than Magical Mystery Cure did with its story. The episode is introduced with a nice song basically summarizing the idea of the CMC, such as what their goal is, which we've known for years now. Funny enough, the first time I viewed this episode with a friend, we both thought this was just going to be a regular CMC episode plot, and boy, we were wrong. We are then at the vote song, with a pretty catchy chorus contrasting the antagonistic theme from Diamond Tiara's parts in the song, with Diamond Tiara ending up losing the election and getting burned by what was her best friend.
Sorry, I'm not allowed to speak.
You'd think the conflict is resolved. However, the episode kind of takes a 180, with introducing the next conflict with a pretty emotional song from Diamond Tiara, kind of like a lament. I found it interesting that this is the first time Diamond Tiara sees the CMC Club. Hey, wait a minute. Also, did Pipsqueak not realize that this would be a problem with being the student body president with not having enough money? Then we get probably my favorite song in the episode. The instrumentation that drives the intensity of the characters running as they try to race and stop Diamond Tiara from going back to the school. The switch between the minor and major modes to match the emotion of each character. Then the episode ends with 2 reprises, each taking a spin on the first time they were sung. And again, the emotion felt the first time we all saw the CMC finally get their marks. It's a moment I know I'll never forget personally. Kind of odd for this moment reusing the show intro clip with Celestia though. Parts of this episode may have felt rushed, such as the sudden turnaround and redemption for Diamond Tiara, but a landmark episode that ends the saga of the CMC on a good note. Welp, wasn't expecting this one for the list.
They're here!
It's always up to experiences and such to how you interpret an episode, and looking back to family reunions I've been to, this episode was very comfy for me. The section of the episode before the first break is the comfiest part, for me at least. You have the night theme, baby AJ. We learn about the Apple's past with pictures and clips from reunions, including a small scene with AJ and Appleboom before them going to bed. We get to see all these family characters interact with each other. There's a great lesson out of AJ learning not to try and force memories to be made through activities, kind of like taking the values of family over physical or materialistic memories and values. After an emotional part of Applejack tearing up when she's lost hope, we get a catchy dance song that's a lot of fun to listen to. It's a very heartwarming, family-oriented episode that gives us a ton of Apple memories for all.
This reunion I'm putting together is gonna be worth the wait.
This one was kind of a last-second decision to include, but I felt that I almost passed right by this one without taking a good look at it. And boy am I glad I came back to it.
I can't begin to tell you how excited I am that you'll all be there with me. However, perhaps I can show you.
This episode is basically Rarity's generosity in a single 22 minutes. First, we get world building by learning about Manhattan in depth, more than we had before this episode aired. We get Rarity bursting out into song, with music that captures the city vibe, establishing how Rarity uses her element in Manhattan. I like when the cab driver comes back with the new wheel to help Rarity, showing wholesomeness that her generosity has paid off. I kinda like the little bait and switch of the plot the first time I watched this, when the problem about the dresses before the break gets resolved pretty quickly after. We get the introduction of Grace Mainwitz, Coco, and Suri, a pretty great one-off antagonist for just being cunning. I love the plot dynamic that Rarity's own generosity is used against her, and she addresses it when on the bed.
My generosity has ruined me, I tell you. Ruined!
It eventually turns around on her when she starts becoming ungenerous in the moment to her own friends making her outfits. There's that small implication that her friends might have left Manhattan when they don't show up to the show and leave the hotel, but it ends up being that they just overslept. And icing on the cake is the reprise we get of the song later on, but this time with a different tone and mood. She reunites with her friends, but that's not even the end. Suri, the antagonist, has another trick up her sleeve with lying about Rarity not winning the competition. Then a tiny new conflict is brought up with Rarity having to stay in Manhattan to help design costumes for her friend, who got the private show for the main six. This is also pretty quickly resolved with giving Coco the job. So it's a win-win with Coco getting employed again, and Rarity getting to go back home. The fact that Coco's change of heart and having the courage to quit was inspired by Rarity's generosity gives the gift all the more significance, which starts off the Season 4 Artifact saga. The little conflicts in the episode that accompany the main storyline with Rarity and Suri makes this all the more fun to watch and keeps me interested. The big city scenery and the music also adds to the excitement I have when watching this episode. A great gem for season 4.
Yeah, you were pretty rotten.
Wow, Applejack. I know your thing is honesty, but come on!
I noticed when making this list that there are a variety of writers on here. Huh, I'm curious. Who wrote the next one? Oh no.
Now you look here, Castle.
This gives me the same entertainment value that any Scooby-Doo-esque trope would go. I appreciate that it's a continuous storyline from when we found the box in the previous episode to this, the season 4 premiere. This also gives us the chance to learn more about the castle of the two sisters, as well as Celestia and Luna's time in there. I appreciate when the storyline is split into 3 different plots, all with different intentions for going to the castle. I like the interaction each storyline has with each other, such as when the contraptions in the castle scare each other without knowing that they are the ones activating it. The music from the organ creates the illusion of the danger and scariness of the castle, even when you know there is no real danger. They get so caught up in it that they end up talking and arguing with the castle itself, which is just an inanimate place. This ties into the lesson that Twilight gives later, that when things seem scary, everything else will feel the same way. The best part is when they all meet up and go on a total freakout all over the place. After the reveal, the episode ends on a nice mysterious cliffhanger that totally doesn't lead to anything in the future. No, really it doesn't. This is a great one-off episode that incorporates the main stakes in a thrill they'll never forget. And now, here's some more honorable mentions.
You're showing all 3 types of Ponyville ponies, yet you have a Pegasus pony who can't even fly!
Besides Rainbow Dash trying to maintain professionalism as a side gag, this is one of the only episodes that tackles Scootaloo's ability to fly as a main subject. We got a great song to go along with the episode, as we see the physical and emotional struggle Scootaloo goes through in this. Interesting ending when instead of magically fixing up the messed up mane, Rarity learns to make the best of it creatively, as well as being helpful to the town. Also, Punk, Rarity. Many comedic moments, but seriously, this town is messed up sometimes.
All we gotta do is bring this thing to the chicken stand, and we are...
A great episode where 3 separate storylines are all going on simultaneously in one setting, with small things noting that fact in the story. Great moments with the need this for this story, and Rainbow Dash almost selling Fluttershy away.
And my reign has been extraordinary. Agree with me!
Probably my favorite Spike episode. I know, that's saying a lot. We get to learn a lot about dragon lore, as well as seeing a kind of epic competitive journey through obstacles to a battle at the end between Spike and Ember versus Garble. Spike steps up to save Equestria and his friends by getting the scepter, and comes out victorious, and introduces friendship to the now Dragon Lord.
I made myself all beautiful, just like my big sister.
Interesting Christmas Carol format, seeing the past, present, and future Sweetie Belle's sibling relationship with Rarity, with the help of Luna of course. The dream sequence gives room for creative writing and animation. We also get a small chase scene near the end. If you think about it, Rarity never intentionally did anything wrong to Sweetie Belle, which makes the conflict just focused around Sweetie Belle herself, and her somewhat ungrateful view towards her sister.
Heartswarming Eve is a menace. A dangerous day for all of Equestria.
Speaking of Christmas Carol, great songs throughout the episode, fitting the mood with each spirit. It's fun seeing the show have its own spin on the classic story plot.
Are we sure that I'll get my magic back when we destroy this throne thingy?
Different set of protagonists than usual to take on the return of the Changelings and Chrysalis. While learning about how the Changeling Hive works, characters you don't see as much get their time to shine. You also get Starlight forgiving herself enough to be in charge of groups again. Come on, I'm always going to remember the date this first aired, which was my birthday, and how surprised I was when she got her wings. A fun concept for the time of Cutie Mark swaps with memorable songs. A big turning point for the show, with a fitting end that would have made a fine series finale, So for that I have to say, thanks M.A. Larson.
Yes, everything's gonna be just fine.
Unless, of course, one of you needs me to smile and wave.
Where you going?
To the castle of the two sisters. I'm not really needed anywhere else.
It felt like the next step of progression, that after Twilight becomes a princess, what exactly does she do with it now? This brings us into a great song that shows a great bonding moment between all of the princesses. Not to mention this is the first time we hear Luna sing a song. I always like the aesthetic scenery in color when Twilight is pictured with a purplish night sky. We can include the other princesses in that as well. It gives so much more to the song, I feel. Immediately after that, there's a contrast with the mysterious introduction to Tyrek, with a dramatic, somewhat eerie music. We get some backstory with Tyrek and Scorpion. Now I lose some interest in the first part, with all the exposition and the hints that Discord gives about the box and the journal, as well as how Twilight addresses the past episodes in Season 4. It felt a little forced and too easy, but I get sucked right back into the episode with the conversation between Discord and Tyrek, since they've known of each other in the past. Without strength, Tyrek uses more social and mental games to convince Discord to join him, which creates a double, more powerful threat before the break. With some great moments of Twilight trying to control all the alicorn power in her, the second half of the two-parter feels like a long growth of suspense, as Tyrek is gaining more and more power and getting closer to Twilight, who ends up being one of the only ones that can stop him. An interesting idea that was brought up before was that the Season 4 premiere had the other 5 wanting Twilight to stay behind, but in the Season 4 finale, Twilight asked the other 5 to stay behind. The last moment before the battle with Tyrek had some heaviness to it as well, even though most of us could see it coming. The way Discord is betrayed after the main 5 characters are trapped is kind of a big moment.
Princess Twilight!
Tyrek!
When Twilight's home is destroyed, it really raises the stakes and motive for Twilight's anger when fighting Tyrek, which I was not expecting the first time I watched this. Lots of intense music with reddish skies and explosions. Of course, Twilight chooses all of her friends over the power. I like how the key was right in front of the viewers the whole time in the episode, which was given by Discord of all creatures. Then we get the Deus Ex Machina with the rainbow power, which, you know, could have been a better ending, but I'll take it. And this episode feels like a new milestone for the show with the creation of the castle and Twilight's new role as Princess of Friendship. With a nice catchy song to wrap it all up, this finale has a lot of suspense, build up, and action to make it a good watch all the way through. Also, did the princesses not think Tyrek would see the Twilight glass window in the castle?
Let the rainbow remind you that together we will always shine.
I started having a plan to do this whole thing back in 2018, and someone asked me why I didn't choose my top 10 then. Well, I wanted to wait until Season 9 happened because I had a feeling something in there was going to affect my list. But part of me actually wasn't expecting it.
I'm leaving, since it's impossible to accomplish the work I need to do here. I suggest the 3 of you come to some kind of accord.
It took 9 years to get a full villain episode, and it does not disappoint. Seeing each of their personalities clash and interact with each other gives a new dynamic that we haven't seen before, which is interesting to watch. We get the tango-inspired song that somewhat changes it up when they fight near the end of it. Cozy Glow takes home the most laughter from me, with her constantly losing her temper, and with the slapstick. Tyrek is clever to stay behind until the other 2 fail, to not waste his time. Then we get hilarious dialogue between Tyrek and Cozy.
Don't you dare bring Gram into this!
We learn a little more about changelings and Chrysalis saving love for later, and the 3 of them end up finding a bond and talking about their encounters with the protagonists, as well as make fun of Twilight Sparkle. It felt like an ultimate trust test with Chrysalis having to give Tyrek all of her magic to break through the magic force field. After Close Call by Cozy Glow, we get shown signs that they are starting to get the whole friendship thing, but then snap back since they are villains and want to stick to their ideologies. I wasn't initially expecting them to keep the bell for themselves, which builds up to a later plot point in the season, a one-of-a-kind episode that managed to come in before the end of the series. If you thought that episode was pretty good, I can't wait till you see what's later on down the list because
No spoilers!
Alright, fine, jeez.
Well, it wasn't the funnest party ever.
It was a plum-puckered, pig-pushing disaster.
I don't remember if I've ever laughed harder at an episode than when I watched this one premiere back in 2016. This one really subverted my expectations of what the content would be. They took the basic premise of Rarity needing help to clean up her new Manhattan shop, and they made it very interesting with having the style of a mockumentary, something rarely done in the show, while taking place in a flashback. Something about the idea that they can talk about each other knowing that the others aren't there really entertains me, such as how AJ and RD make fun of Twilight's sweep song, then collectively hoof bump. Also, smug RD. So many bizarre moments that happen in this episode. So many in fact that I can't name them all or we'll be here for another few minutes. With Rarity forgiving the others at the end, this episode brings many laughs and quotable moments that it'd be very hard to forget.
I'm flying!
We finally got to learn a little more about Twilight's parents, such as their personalities and interests. This gives a comfy feeling of a family going on a vacation together. This is shown with examples such as the bond between Twilight and Shining Armor, as well as Cadance and Twilight later on. There's a good balance or amount of comedic relief, especially with Shining Armor.
How can I be airsick? I'm in the water, so it totally cancels out.
And Iron Will, who I was not expecting to see again. We also got some somewhat hilariously uncomfortable moments with Star Tracker. Twilight has a conflict with trying to please everyone else without thinking about herself. It really tugged at the heartstrings when Twilight misses out on the Northern Stars, the one thing she was looking forward to see with her family during this trip. Then we get a great bonding moment between Cadance and Twilight, who already shared the same experience of being viewed just as princesses on the ship. There's that aesthetic purple night sky with Twilight, and Cadance tells Twilight about when to set one's boundaries for themselves. We get a heartwarming ending with what Twilight's family does for her with the stars, Star Tracker giving Twilight time with her family, the other passengers respecting Twilight's wishes, and Iron Will jumping off the side of the Zeppelin. This episode has a nice balance of comedy, conflict, and heartwarming moments that makes me excited every time this comes on. Well, we're halfway through the list. Before we continue on, here are a few more honorable mentions.
I love me. I love to grow like an apple tree. So let me ask, will you marry me?
An emotional symbolic ending referring back to the perfect pair, including some of the mockumentary elements from Saddle Row Review, as well as two storylines that occur simultaneously. Great episode to be a precursor to the finale.
Awake.
This episode has some deep emotional feels, with Twilight coping with the new home by keeping herself occupied and not wanting to be in the castle. The idea of the gift she's gotten having sentimental value of old memories is a heartwarming ending to this episode.
Yeah, we needed to focus, but we're definitely not avoiding them.
Tackling the subject between a parent and their child, I appreciated the idea that your parents become your friends as you get older. Getting to see Starlight and Sunburst's old home was a nice touch as well.
That sounds like the worst night ever.
It was!
It's weird to go back and look at how the season 1 storyline was leading up to the gala. No big villains, no weird spells, just a regal event. The first time watching this, I was intrigued at the direction it took with none of the main 6 expectations being met after having the grand song leading up to them walking in. Had a wholesome ending and a great send-off to the first season. If you want to see part 2, check the description or the channel. We got some good ones in the next part.